So most golfers have got lofted fairway woods, whether it be 5 wood, 7 wood in the bag. And the reason it's in the bag is that they hope that by putting a decent swing on the golf ball, they should be able to create some nice club head speed, hit the ball nice and high, and get lots and lots of distance from it. But unfortunately for most golfers, even though it's in the bag for the right reasons, they don't produce that. They stand over the golf ball, they get set up, and very often they'll top it, fat it, thin it, and they just don't feel that the fairway wood or the hybrid that's in the bag does the job it's supposed to. So then the little challenge for a lot of golfers is they end up going back to the long iron. They feel they maybe get a good strike on the golf ball, but far too often when I see golfers with a long iron in the hand, the strike might be fairly solid, but the ball launches extremely low, doesn't get any peak height. We can see there only 31 feet, doesn't carry anywhere, and they're reliant completely on roll. So the reason for the fairway wood or the hybrid is golfers need to hit the ball further with those longer clubs from the ground. So the first thing we notice is even though these two clubs are the same loft, 21 degrees, the 7 wood has a much longer shaft, which should generate much more club head speed, but the design of the head is very different. So we can see the center of gravity of the iron is only just slightly behind the leading edge, so it's not really going to add much loft to impact, whereas the fairway wood, the center of gravity is much further back, which is going to promote more loft. Now, also with the faces of the two clubs, there's roll and bulge with the fairway wood and the hybrid. There isn't with the iron. So the idea being, if we can hit slightly higher up the face with the fairway wood, it's going to launch higher, maybe have a little bit more backspin on the ball, keep the ball in the air, and the longer shaft should then give us the distance like we saw on that very first shot I hit. So let's throw the long iron away. Let's talk about what causes the big issue for a lot of golfers with their fairway woods and hybrids. I think the biggest thing for me is they don't learn how to control where the bottom of the swing is. So they almost want to feel that the fairway woods and hybrids are a bit like driver because they're a metal wood. But we don't want that. We don't want that ball way forward, that little bit of spine tilt, because even if I made a decent swing, and I might strike one nicely, my low point there was 2.4 inches behind, so the club's travelling up as it hits the golf ball. And even though that's a fantastic shot at 183 yards carry, what I've had to do there is I've got the bottom of my swing 2.5 inches behind, but I've had to get the height of my swing absolutely perfect in order to get that strike. Now, if I'm a little bit low there, that's where I catch the ground behind, or a little higher, the club comes back higher and I top or thin the ball. So we want to treat the fairway woods and hybrids exactly like an iron. So initially, I'm going to get you, if you're working through this video with me, to get that ball very much more central in the stance. Now remember, I've got a 7 wood here. You might find if you're doing this with 5 wood, 3 wood, or maybe even a 19-degree hybrid, that this initially won't give you the ball flight you're after, but will give you a much better strike. So you're going to keep the ball much more kind of in line with your sternum. We're not going to try and get the weight 50-50. We're going to move a little bit more pressure into that lead side. And we're going to almost feel like we keep the pressure towards that left side in the backswing, and then we can move towards the target. So do that. And we see straight away there, I'm going to touch much further ahead of the golf ball. So I'm expecting to see here, low point ahead of the ball. I'm also expecting to see the ball maybe launch a little bit lower than I would like, but still we're going to get more height than the 31 feet we saw before. So that one felt a little bit thin, but we can see 92 mile an hour club speed, low point 1.5 inches ahead, launching at 11 degrees, peak height 73 feet, and carrying 206. So even though that strike wasn't perfect, the forgiveness of the club still got the ball launching up in the air. The extra speed I generate with that longer shaft, we got the energy into the ball, and we see a much higher and much longer shot. Now, definitely for me, that feels too far back and feels like I'm going to collect the ball a little bit too early, therefore catch the ball a little higher up. So I'm just going to move the ball very, very slightly forward of centre. Still going to get that pressure into that left side and treat this exactly like I'm treating an iron with the way I swing the club. That felt a better strike. So 93 mile an hour club speed. Low point slightly less ahead at 0.9 inches. Launching at 15.6. Height at 95 feet and carry at 195. Now, even though that one didn't go as far, that was better. The little thinny one kind of went a little bit low. But that 95 feet peak height for me is round about the height that I hit my certainly 5-iron down to pitching wedge. And as a general rule, you should hit all your clubs around the same peak height. Obviously, just the trajectory is a little bit different and the distances are different. But I see with, let's say 99% of golfers I see, the short irons, they get the same peak height. But even at getting into mid irons, we start seeing a drop off. Long irons, a huge drop off. And that's where we don't see the correct gap in. And that's where if you go for a gap in session, look at those yardages and see how the height affects it. So I've had a 7-wood in my bag now for, this is probably the 3rd season. And this has been an absolute revelation for me. 3-iron isn't in the bag anymore. I have put a 2-iron in the bag, but it's not about carry for me. But the 7-wood feels so easy to stand up there, put a good solid swing on it. When I strike it well, I know I've got that speed. I like that high cut for me, super high, more carry, stopping quickly. And the beauty is I'm indoor here, taking kind of all the variables out, but even on indifferent lies, the workability of that club gives me different options from 200, 210 yards that I never really had in the bag unless it was a perfect lie. But the big thing for most golfers is stop treating it like a driver. You know, whether it be 3-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood, 9-wood perhaps, any of those hybrids, just because they're metal woods, the ball's on the ground, or if you're off a tee, a very low tee, so you want to get yourself set, ball very slightly forward of centre, bit more pressure on that lead side at address, feel that you stay more over the ball during the backswing, shift towards the target, and that's going to get you controlling the low point. The low point of the swing for me is such a key part to make sure you're catching the ball in the correct part of the golf swing. Far too many golfers worry about their path changing, their face changing, but if you're catching the ball in a different part of your swing every time, the path and the face are going to be different. So if you can be much more consistent with the way you stand and deliver the club, this technique will make it so much easier to hit those fairway woods and hybrids just like you're supposed to, and then they'll be doing exactly what they've been put in the bag to do.